Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Achieve Your Email Integration Goals, How LinkPoint Connect Can Solve Your Outlook to Salesforce Challenges. My name is Jill McConaughey, and I'm LinkPoint 360's Director of Marketing and Client Relations. I also have our Professional Services Manager, Iana Vovcik, with me on the call today, and we both appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us for our presentation. Before we get started, I do want to review a few quick items about the webinar itself. All attendees are muted and placed in listen-only mode for the duration of the webinar. We are going to start the call with a fairly full agenda and a review of a number of client goals that we've encountered through our work with customers. And this will also cover a review of our flagship email integration solution, and that's LinkPoint Connect. But if you do have questions for us today, we want to answer them. So feel free to type those up and send them to us in the questions section in the GoToWebinar panel. And we're going to open it up for Q&A toward the end of the session, and we'll review the questions then. We are also recording this session, and we'll send a copy out to everybody as soon as we have that available. So as I mentioned, we have a pretty packed agenda today. And we've centered this conversation around a number of common customer goals. So I've thrown the list up on the screen, but we're going to be talking about a variety of aspects when it comes to email integration software, specifically around Outlook and Salesforce. And that's going to encompass secure access and data management, the ability to have flexible installation and configurable settings so that the solution you choose fits your actual requirements and needs. Then we'll jump into Salesforce data viewing and making sure you don't lose end user efficiency, you're not wasting time. Email recording and archiving back to Salesforce with both end user accuracy and productivity in mind. Contact management options that keep an eye on minimal data entry, reducing lost time, and avoiding that horror that is duplicates in your CRM. Then we're going to pivot a little and talk about making meeting interactions more meaningful, and hopefully end, if we're still good on time, with a little bit of a talk about the importance of data reliability and consistency when it comes to syncing. Okay, so again, a lot to talk through, but we're going to go ahead and get started with security. So LinkPoint Connect lends itself to a range of installation environments and security needs, and we hear about security all of the time from our clients. It's important that the option you pick for your email integration reflects your specific setup from a compliance standpoint, from just an IT standpoint, and our security and wide range of access options are one way that we stand out from other integration solutions on the market. We know that allowing any application access to your email accounts and to your CRM, that's pretty serious stuff. So we've designed our software with security and flexibility in mind. So you see I've got a pretty big list up on the screen, and all these will depend on what your specific requirements are. But LinkPoint Connect integrates directly with Salesforce through the Salesforce API and supports Salesforce SSO. We transmit data, but we don't store data in the application. So we're not hanging on to your customer content. We're not storing information on LinkPoint 360 servers for the application we're going to be discussing today. We support all versions of Salesforce. I know there's a number of different editions. There are differences in Classic versus Lightning. We support all of those. We even support partner communities. So if you have partner community users or portals out there, we do work with those. And we don't require Salesforce admin access or Einstein to get the product up and running. So if you're not the Salesforce admin, maybe you're a sales manager or director and you're looking for tools that help with this Outlook to Salesforce dilemma, you don't need to install an application or admit access within Salesforce itself. However, we do also honor every Salesforce profile permission setting that you have. So just because we don't require admin access doesn't mean that we don't honor your security settings that are already established in Salesforce. And this is also including Salesforce Shield encryption. On the Outlook or the email side, we do not require direct integration with Exchange or require user Exchange passwords. Our application installs directly inside of Outlook, so that keeps your one less thing that your users have to enter, and it also avoids exposure for your AWS URL endpoint, which is a big security issue for some companies. Okay, so in a felt like a high level, but maybe it wasn't. In a high level view, security is at the forefront of everything that we do. And it goes into this second goal that we've sort of identified, which is successful and hopefully streamlined installation. So for individual users or companies that are a little less strict or centralized, you can easily install our application per machine as you need, but you do have the option to control deployment as well. We can provide customers with installation packages and customized files that meet your specific deployment needs. And I've got a bunch of different deployment needs that we typically run into up on the screen. So as I mentioned, you can install per user per machine locally. We can support 100% on-premise setup. You can use software deployment tools or do a silent install with our application. We support a number of customers using various virtual desktop environments, that's like a Citrix or terminal services, with or without roaming profiles. You can simulate your cloud deployment using scripts. And just as an aside, it's sort of a different way to look at installation. We do support IMAP and POP3 setups. So if you're using a non-Exchange email account within your Outlook, we're still going to work with that because we interface directly with Outlook. So I know this is a lot of information up front. If we haven't shared a feature or a deployment situation that matches exactly what you're looking to achieve, you can always email sales@linkpoint360.com and we can help clarify exactly how our software can be supported in your environment. But I like to talk about the security and installation up front, in part because they're key to deciding whether or not you want to even consider software for your company. Another key goal goes into, well, I know that it's secure and I know I can deploy it, but will it meet my exact needs? And that goes into the customization and configuration. We're going to be taking a look at LinkPoint Connect today firsthand in just a few moments, but I do think it's helpful to keep in mind that we can further customize the software if you have specialized needs. And what you're going to see me walk through today, it's going to reflect obviously my test account for Salesforce, and it's a fairly standard setup. LinkPoint Connect detects all custom objects, fields, and record types out of the box. So your setup will look a little different than mine. And since it follows permissions and access relative to Salesforce, your instance may even vary slightly from a colleague's. Our professional services team can help customize default settings, lock down certain features, especially offer some configuration options and packaging around our sync settings. And they're really great about consulting on best practices to help make sure that the software fits your workflow need. So if you're trying LinkPoint Connect for the first time, or you're not quite seeing something on my screen today that is a requirement for your workflow, definitely ask us. We're happy to talk through exactly what has to change or what we can do to accommodate that for you. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the upfront considerations and goals for email integration, we're going to pivot a little, have some fun, and take a look at the actual software. And we'll start that talking about another really big goal that comes up with a lot of our clients, and that's being able to view Salesforce data without hassle, the back and forth, and time-wasted searching. So let me go ahead and get my Outlook up on the screen, and hopefully everyone is seeing me in my Outlook. And if you're new to LinkPoint Connect, what you're going to be looking for once you get set up with your trial access is our application is housed again inside of Outlook here, and it's in this side panel on the right side of my screen. So for our first product goal, I think we're on goal number 4 here, but when we talk about the goal of viewing Salesforce data, LinkPoint Connect immediately simplifies that. So we are essentially an email-centric application, or email address-centric, which means when I'm on an email in my inbox, we search all of the email addresses on that email, and behind the scenes, we search for matching Salesforce records. So your side panel becomes your window into Salesforce, okay? If you're concerned about it taking up space, you can always collapse it. I have a little button in the top corner here. You can make some room and then pop it back out when you need to work with it again. And that sort of flashed on my screen, but you can get an idea of how much room you can save. I also want to note I have mine expanded fairly large and I've zoomed in on it, so it's taking up a lot more real estate than yours would need to. I just like to do that for demo purposes so that hopefully it makes it a little easier for everybody to see on the screen share. So our window to Salesforce is right here, and if we switch really quick just to an email where we don't have anyone in Salesforce, you can see how the window here on the side panel changes, right? So just to show you that dynamic instant search, I don't have to go try to find any information on my own in Salesforce. We do have a pretty robust search, so you can use this search bar at the top. Let's type somebody in and hit go. So you can search if you want to work with a different set of records. We are going to do a full search of Salesforce for you on demand, depending on what you're trying to achieve, okay? If you want to view additional or extra information about a record, when you mouse over one, you'll see I'm getting a whole bunch of different orange icons, and one I'm getting is on the right side, and that's our record details. So you can look even more in depth beyond just that snapshot you're seeing at a glance, and you can pop the record details open to see even more information, just as if you were viewing the record in Salesforce. And again, yours will look different than mine. I have a little bit of a wonky test account here, but you can expand these sections. You can scroll through your activity history, just as if you were looking through it inside of Salesforce, and work with the data as needed. So now that we know who we're working with and we know that we can achieve the goal of viewing Salesforce data without a hassle, that always segues fairly quickly into another requirement or goal we get from clients all the time, and that's recording or archiving emails back to Salesforce accurately and efficiently. So we're going to spend a little bit of time now on email recording. I like to start with viewing because it orients you within the side panel. You get comfortable seeing these records being displayed. And the email recording happens inside of the side panel too. So let's start with an inbound email, which is I'm in my inbox, so that's the best place to start. So you're going to select an email, which we've done here already. And it's super simple to archive an email back to Salesforce. The first way I'm going to show you is anywhere you see a checkbox, you can click the checkbox and instantly record. So here's Fred, here's a checkbox, click the box. Note he's kind of moved down to this bottom section, so it's showing me this email has been related to this record in Salesforce. And if that's all I needed to do, I'm done recording my emails. So we've done that fairly accurately, and definitely we've done that with productivity and efficiency in mind. It took about 2 seconds for me to find the box and check it. You can spend more time on this. So if you need to record the email back to multiple contacts, just keep checking the boxes. I believe Salesforce has a limit of, I think, 50 contacts. If that's what you need to do, you can just keep plowing through your contacts. You can also relate back to other record types. So we'll pop a few of these open just to show you. You can work with any of the records you have access to in Salesforce as long as they have an activity history section allocated to them. So we have a place to actually record to. So I can pretty easily find that opportunity I want to work with. And now I'm recording the email to 2 contacts as well as an opportunity. And I've done that with just a few clicks. Okay. This email has an attachment on it. Let's just clean this up a bit. And you can see that it's just sort of hanging out here as my sample PDF. And there's an attachment section over on my side panel. If I want to record the attachment at the same time that I'm recording the email, I just check that box. And now you can see the attachment is stacked into this running list of related to Salesforce. Okay. And we have settings if you want to include attachments by default, and you can kind of get a little more fancy with your configuration options. But I'd like to show you how easy it is to record emails and attachments with just a click or two. If you've made a mistake and you don't want to do that, just uncheck the box. Now that attachment is no longer in Salesforce or associated with those records, so you can uncheck to change your mind at any time. And I'm actually going to do that because I want to pretend we're starting fresh and show you another quick way to record emails. All right, so we've returned our side panel back to the beginning. Let's say we've just gotten this email back in again, and I want to record to all of the contacts on the email in one shot and be done with it. Also super simple. You can bypass your checkboxes in your side panel and just pop down to the bottom portion. There's this accept these suggestions. It looks like a link, and it's listing all of the suggestions we're making for you based on the people on the email. So when I click this, I can record to multiple contacts in one click, and you're seeing my side panel refresh there. So again, it just depends on your workflow needs, but that is an option for you. Let's take a look at what this does when we're doing an outbound email. So let me just go ahead here. And I'm going to pop this out to make it easier to see. Okay, so now we're on an outbound email, and it looks pretty similar to what I just did with my side panel in my inbox. I have a side panel here in my outbound email, and you'll notice the first thing we've done to make your life a little bit more efficient is, by default, we know on that inbound email you recorded it to Fred and Jake. So we're making that recommendation for you, and we're actually carrying over those references here in the bottom of my side panel. So that's a nice to have because it sort of makes fewer steps if those predictions are correct. If it's not and you want to remove someone, just easily uncheck that box. Again, on an outbound email, you have the same options here to go ahead and add opportunities. You can work with attachments. This one doesn't happen to have one on it, but it works exactly the same way. So you can stop here and just hit send, and the email will get recorded. Let's see, I have a contact and I have an opportunity selected. And you can run with that, hit send, and the email will record, assuming you've written something. I haven't really done that here. But I want to show you a few other quick productivity tools that we've built into the email recording process in case they're of help to your workflow. The first is creating follow-up tasks. This typically happens in my workflow more on an outbound email, but you have it from your inbox. And in either case, you're just going to look for this follow-up icon, and I'm in the top right corner of this related to Salesforce bar. And when I click that, I have the option to create a follow-up task. So this form reflects my fields in Salesforce for task creation, so yours will look a little different. You can see it's relating it to Fred and that opportunity I've selected because we're creating the task from a place where we've already made some Salesforce relationships. You can change that if you need to. All of your required fields will still be required. But on the whole, you're able to come in here, create your follow-up task, and click your green check mark to save. I missed a required field. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay. So that's a quick and easy follow-up task. You can also change how the email appears in Salesforce. So if you want, maybe this is the 15th email and you're back and forth with someone and you want to adjust how it appears in your activity history, you can click this View Salesforce Fields button in the bottom of your side panel, and you can edit the subject to something a little more descriptive. My example, I'm just changing it for the demo purposes. But you can make this more reflective of what your conversation or interaction is actually about. Okay. What's great about this is it affects how it's viewed in Salesforce, but it doesn't affect back here on the original email what Fred and Jake are going to see. So they're not going to know that you changed how this is being tagged back into your CRM. But it's going to make your data more accurate when people are looking at it more contextually. Green check mark to save. And just as a point of reference, some people heavily use this and some people don't leverage it in Salesforce, but if you are using Salesforce email templates and you're populating them in your CRM, we do have an option here. It's this third button in my top left corner of my side panel. And we do have an option here to let you use merge fields and actually interact with your email templates on outbound emails so that you don't have to keep typing the same thing over and over. And again, with productivity in mind. And if you're interested in seeing that, I have some documents and other videos that we can go over it, just trying to keep us on time today. Okay? So we can go ahead and send this just to get it out of our way and record it back, creating that task, editing how it appears. And once you get into a workflow, the application, it only takes a couple of seconds each time to really get comfortable working with the email recording. Let's switch gears and talk about another email integration goal when it comes to working with Salesforce data inside of Outlook. And that comes down to working with and creating Salesforce records in Outlook with minimal data entry, without wasting time, and again, without those dreaded duplicates. So I'm going to switch to an email from someone who's not in Salesforce. And we're going to show you a few different ways that you can maintain your Salesforce records and create your records straight from Outlook. There are several ways that you can do this, and the first one we're going to talk about is LinkPoint Connections. And LinkPoint Connections keeps track of all of essentially the new people that you come into contact with in Outlook. We look at the email address and a few other factors, and we check Salesforce. And in this case, Michael James is not in Salesforce. So what Connections is doing is it's going, okay, I didn't find a match. Let's grab everything we know about this person from the email and collect it for me to look at whenever I'm ready. When you're on an email, what you're going to see is contextual. So I'm on the email from Michael, so I'm seeing Michael over here on the side. Pretty straightforward. You're also being given several little orange icons here for you to act on this record. So I can create a Salesforce contact, I can create a Salesforce lead, or I can create an Outlook contact if this is someone I just want to keep local to me. The X at the end is if I just don't want to work with this record, I can disregard this and it'll sort of clear it from the connections pane. Let's go ahead and look at what it looks like to create the record because it's pretty straightforward. We'll try to make a contact here. And when I do this, it's going to launch a snap form. And the snap form is automatically populated with as much information as it could map to your existing fields. These are going to match your contact, in this case it's contact, your contact creation fields from Salesforce, and we're going to populate as much of it as we can. This list here on the left is showing you everything Connections had already sort of collected, and the check mark means we found a home for it. So the title here wasn't mapping correctly, so I can click and drag and drop that right in. So I don't have to type in Vice President, at least that's a more short title. You can drag values from field to field. You will still need to validate and create based off of all your required fields in your workflows, but with just a few clicks and then your green check mark here to save, you can instantly create that contact in Salesforce. I'm going to not do that just so I can keep showing you examples with Michael here. We'll click on the lead icon just to show you same difference, right? So it's my lead creation form reflecting my lead fields, and these fields have mapped in. And again, I would just need to go ahead, acknowledge any of those required fields, and click the green check to create a lead. So hopefully what you're seeing here is that we're showing you A, this person doesn't exist in Salesforce, and B, it takes just a few clicks with pretty much no typing to go ahead and create that in Salesforce so that you can work with it more effectively, so that you can start recording your emails back to it or, tracking your other workflow priorities against that. We do have another option for record creation, and that's with our email signature drag and drop. I'll show you it with Michael first. It's very similar. If you highlight an email signature, click and hold with your left mouse button and drag this like I'm moving it to the bottom left corner of my side panel. When I mouse over this drop zone option and let go, I'm presented with a number of options for record creation. So this can be helpful, and let's just do contact here. If you've disregarded Michael James, for example, in the past, and he's no longer showing in connections on my side panel, you can still go ahead and create your records without typing, and you end up with a very similar result where the fields have been populated for you. This is also very helpful for existing contacts. So I know Fred exists in Salesforce. I know that partly because I can see him over here in my side panel. I've worked with him. Let's say either I haven't paid attention to that, or I'm curious to see if anything has changed in his contact info. I'm dragging and dropping, and I'm going to try to create a contact. And our system tells me right off of the bat that I might have a potential duplicate issue. So I can choose to create a new contact using all of the values from that email signature, or I can choose to update an existing contact so I don't create a duplicate, and we're even showing which field values have changed between the original and now the new signature values. In either case, you can choose how you want to move forward. When you click this check, you're still going to have to verify everything within the snap form. Okay? So we're going to make an edit here, but before we do that, I have to approve those changes and follow all of those workflow requirements. Very briefly, I'll just show you that you can also create a new record from pretty much anywhere in the side panel. And in the top right corner, you'll have this create new record icon. And that's where we can work with more than just contacts and leads. Everything I've talked about so far has been very much around people management. This is where you'll see all of your custom and standard Salesforce object types so that you can create anything you would have permission to create within Salesforce. I've selected a new account here just to show you that we also do support record type. So you have a drop down where you have access to that, and you can switch between these and your fields will dynamically change in between them. And again, everything will reflect your permission and your field values. You can also, anywhere you see that same form icon on a record, choose to create somewhat of a contextual new record. So from an account, I can create, let's try to create a case. And the case form that shows up starts out with all of the fields that I have again in Salesforce. So you're seeing this pattern and I'm starting to sound like I'm repeating myself, but that's a good thing because we're going to have data quality, we're going to have data consistency. So you can create that from anywhere. Anywhere you have a pencil icon lets you edit an existing record. So let's find an opportunity here. You see I have a pencil, we'll click that, and that lets you make quick updates on the fly. So maybe I need to change the stage for this. Maybe it's moving forward based off an email that I just got from Fred, or maybe I need to update a different field here. It'll depend on your workflow, but you can come in here very quickly, make a change, and you can see in real time the stage value here just flashed orange for me, and it reflects the change that was made to Salesforce in real time. While we're talking about these little orange icons, I will mention that you have two extras in this row that are worth just pointing out. We'll go backward. So this one on the end with the little box with the arrow on it, you can click to go to Salesforce and launch that in your browser at any time. So that's your shortcut back to the CRM. And anywhere you have a paperclip icon, you can actually drag and drop an attachment to. So if I were not recording this email, but this is a signed contract instead of a sample PDF, anywhere I see that paperclip, I can click and hold, and I'm going to drag and drop the file now. And when I mouse down over or hover over that paperclip, my icon's going to change. Hopefully you can see it. It's a little teeny tiny plus sign. And when I let go, you can see it saying it successfully uploaded my PDF. So that's a nice quick way anywhere you see that paperclip icon to drag and drop a file. I just did that from inside Outlook because that's where I'm working, but you can do that from pretty much anywhere. So your web browser, your desktop, if you're trying to pull files onto a record really quickly, that's an easy way to do that. Let's see, we talked about the search. Very briefly, we have a preferences pane. If you want to play with configuration settings, that's going to be down in the bottom right corner. And you can come in here and you can adjust the settings that are available so that For example, you can auto-select all of your email attachments, or you can exclude certain domains from showing up in the search and so forth. We have a lot of documentation around our preferences, and it's a little easier to talk about those a little bit more in depth once we know your exact goals for email integration. And our professional services team can consult on how you would actually go about configuring some of these to meet some of those goals. But I like to point out it's here. You're more than welcome to play around with those settings. Okay. The next goal that we hear customers talk about a lot centers around making your meeting interactions more meaningful to your business. And that's going to center mainly around our meeting recap feature. Meeting Recap is designed to capture meeting notes and help you update content in Salesforce a bit more contextually. It's great to log that you had a call or have an event on your Salesforce calendar related to a record so that you or your managers know that you met with somebody about something. But the more information you can get or capture about that with limited work for the end user, the more valuable the fact that you had that meeting or that one of your employees had a meeting with someone can become to your business. It can open up coaching opportunities. It can certainly impact your pipeline. So we've created our meeting recap feature to focus on this. You can access meeting recap from this icon here in the top of your side panel. And if you don't have this enabled, you can reach out to our sales team and we can get that turned on for you to play with. And that would allow you to launch the meeting recap experience. We do also have a mobile app available for Android and for iPhone or Apple platforms. I don't have meeting recap access set up on this computer, but I can show you a preview of what it looks like because I think it's a little bit difficult to picture sometimes. So I grabbed some screens and hopefully this works, okay? But essentially what customers do is they define a custom question and answer experience and it gets deployed out to all of the end users. So you choose what information from your meetings that your teams are having with either prospects or clients, what things you want them to be collecting or telling you about from those interactions. And you can kind of see that here on this screen, sort of in the middle here. Then all the user needs to do at the end of a meeting is click that icon in the top left of their side panel and click through real quickly and select all the answers to all of the questions that you're posing to them. Fields and data are updated in Salesforce once the recap is completed. Managers can receive email notifications with a summary when it's completed as well. The feature, like I mentioned before, can be really great for pipeline management and coaching, but it also makes sure that the data you're collecting is contextual as well as consistent across all of your users. And that ends up giving you quality data that you're populating in your CRM that you can make business decisions off of. So again, if you're interested in learning more about the meeting recap feature and how to make your meeting interactions more meaningful, you can email sales@linkpoint360.com either for more details or to make sure that your access includes a trial for this feature, since I think it can add a lot of extra value to the integration that we provide. I'm going to switch back and we're going to talk about one of the last goals that we had planned to discuss today, and that's going to be around reliable and consistent data sync, which is going to give you accurate reporting and a single space for your data entry. So syncing is a great way to make sure that data moves when and where you need it, and the ability to create items in one place and tell our system when and how to move the content can save tons of time. Ensure, again, we're going back to accurate reporting. We're thinking about your Salesforce ROI overall. And then you only have to create items once while our application takes care of moving the items for you. All of our sync controls are located separately in LinkPoint Assist, so I'm going to access that from our task menu. And I'm going to switch to our syncing tab. And at a high level, because I think this is one of the places where our pro services team comes in very handy as far as consulting on best practices, but at a high level, you can do separate sync settings for calendars, contacts, and tasks. This can work automatically or manually. You can do each of the syncs either one way or bidirectionally. So you have a ton of control over how your data moves. Many users may find that these settings are pre-configured or locked down. If you're a newer customer, that doesn't mean that something's wrong. It means that your company went through a formal onboarding process with us and have pre-configured all of these settings. If you're considering LinkPoint, that's another benefit where we can make sure that all of your users are working with the sync in the same way. Some typical ways that happens is your calendar sync might end up being bidirectional, but your contact sync might be one way from Salesforce down to Outlook, with controls or settings in place to prevent users from deleting Salesforce records by accident. We even have some customers who just have us hide the contact sync. So again, you have the control over how your data is managed. I do speak very high level about the sync just because many companies are quite particular about how the sync and the data is managed. But I do like to make sure that people know that these options are available and you can achieve a reliable data sync with our software. Okay, I'm checking my list of agenda items for the day, of the list of customer goals that we've run into pretty frequently, and it looks like I've covered most of those. I am going to switch gears a bit then and open it up for Q&A. So if you haven't sent a question over, or there's a feature that you want to see again, you have a use case that I haven't addressed, definitely be sure to put that in the questions pane in the GoToWebinar panel, and we can certainly take a look at that for you. I'll give everyone a second here just to see if there's anything that you'd like me to address before we wrap up for the day. I know that was a lot of information, so everybody just might be taking a minute to take it all in. One question I do sometimes get when it comes to the sync is, do I have to turn the sync on to move the data for calendars, contacts, and tasks between systems? So just to make sure I clarify for that, remember when you're working with any of our snap forms, and a good example of this might be a task, right? Whether you're creating a new task from up here in the top right corner, or you're using that follow-up task option on the email recording process like we showed you earlier, these are all going up to Salesforce. So I'm creating this in Salesforce with my Salesforce form. So we do recommend, if you're using the task creation method a lot or the event creation a lot, and you like to work more with your tasks or your events, probably more so with your events on your calendar and Outlook, the sync is going to be helpful because it's going to bring that information down. So if you create tasks here and you don't see them in Outlook, it's because you don't have your sync enabled to bring that down. But you can do that with a one-way sync. So you can control exactly which items are coming back down to Outlook, and again, create it once, but allow it to sort of manage that process for you. When you're working with calendar items and tasks, you'll still have a side panel, so you can also just one-off record an event or a task up to Salesforce one way as well. That's not a true sync, but it is another option that you have available to you. Okay, and I'm not seeing any more questions in GoToWebinar. I'm just going to wrap up very briefly. Let me switch back into PowerPoint, because if you're like me, you'll think of your questions after the fact, and that's perfectly fine. I want to make sure you have the resources for that if you do want to cover some more of your specific integration goals with us directly as a team. So we do have an online knowledge base, and that's going to give you step-by-step instructions for all of our system features, other helpful videos, screenshots. So if you need to kind of revisit one of these to see how it pairs up against your needs, you can certainly do that. You can access a 14-day free trial of our software through our website. So if you have not tried our software out, you can certainly do so. Sometimes that's the best way to really see if something is a fit for you. So we want to make sure you see where to do that. And our support team is available if you run into any of the technical or configuration questions. And if you have questions about your account, maybe access questions, you want to try the meeting recap feature out, you can contact sales@linkpoint360.com, and my team will be happy to assist you with whatever you need on that front. So I want to thank you again for joining us today. I hope that this session helped clarify for everybody a little bit more about how you can achieve your own email integration goals, but also increase the value of your Salesforce investment with LinkPoint Connect and some of the different ways that you can do that. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to look at LinkPoint Connect with me, and I look forward to working with you again or newly in the future.